a few years ago, the housing association of this apartment block in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, came to us with the question that they want to have upgrading their energy label. There was some variation in energy label within the apartment flats from F till D. And they want all to go to energy label A. So they asked us as a company, what should we do? How can we approach this? But first we investigated the building and we discovered there was a lot of mold in the building, for example. There were broken pipes and some cracks in the facade. All things that actually had nothing to do with the sustainable renovation, like isolation materials. And actually the people were not aware of that's also something they need to fix. So we calculated that the renovation of each apartment there would be anywhere between 60 and 100,000 euros. And then you don't have the full isolation package. For example, the heat pump was not even within this calculation. So that was a big issue for this homeowner association because some people already lived there for like 30 or 40 years, didn't necessarily have the savings for these kind of investments on their communal bank account or on their personal bank account. Also, a saving for this or a loan for this would be way too high to pay off over 20 years. So it was a big issue. And so what did we do? So as some of you might see, there's a small variation in the color of the facade. So what did we do? We built a layer on top of it. We built 10 new apartments on top of the existing apartments. And we created a business model for that all the profits of those new homes we built, we sell them on the market, and all the profits went to the bank account of that housing association. And in that way, we could do the maintenance, do like the lack of maintenance, solve that, and solve a big part of the sustainable isolation of the construction. So what do you need for that? So first, in the Netherlands, you need to have participation. You need to have 100% of all the current homeowners voting for this rooftop extension. We call Optoppen not only in the Netherlands, it's now also adopted in England and in Spain. I will tell later more about this. And we could bring more than 800,000 euros to the VVE. But because we did the rooftop extension, they didn't have to pay for the isolation and the repair of the roof. Also, the elevator was included in the construction cost of those new built apartments. And we created, of course, new homes. And we didn't do one flat. There were actually two flats next to each other. So we did two flats together to save on the construction cost. Because we did two flats together, we could save more than 20% on the construction cost. And in the aftermath, we asked some brokers to calculate what did it do with the housing prices after we did the roof extension. And we saw an uplift of somewhere around 18% uplift if you compare it to the flats in the neighborhood. And that's because the new built apartments are just like a new apartment, like literally new built, A+ label, very good. But houses below were renovated and they had the same uplift actually as the apartments on the top level. So a good return on investment. So how did we do this? So one of the things to take the whole housing association with us in this journey, because of course there were just a few people who directly understand the benefits of this. But you have to get everyone involved, and not only the homeowner association, but also the municipality and the contractors. Because not many contractors want to work for a housing association because of the voting rights and the complaints and everything that comes along. So we started with making a legal model. And actually the homeowners could play with the model and build the layer on top. And we brought this everywhere to the municipality, and we say, yeah, we want to do this. What do you think of it? That really helped us actually in the process. And that's how Creative City Solutions was born. So my name is Thijs Muller. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Creative City Solutions. I also studied at the TU Delft. And we created a platform that supports property owners by simplifying this Optoppen, this rooftop extension, and the renovation of the buildings below. So first, I briefly want to tell you what's Optoppen. Optoppen, rooftop extension in Europe, it's not something new. It's been done for the last decades, and actually for ages, this is a way to repurpose the existing buildings. And so in Europe, in every city, you see some projects of this. So what is new this time? So we did some research on what typologies of Optoppen projects are there. So we differentiate the mega projects, which is like, there's like an old monumental building and it's really a one-of-a-kind big project, and we built at once a few hundred homes maybe. These are 300 homes on top of an old fabric in Rotterdam. We call this the mega Optopping. Then we have the transformation Optopping. You can see there's like an old building. You cannot really renovate it anymore, but you can keep the foundation, for example, or the structure. And while doing like the whole transformation, you build some extra layers to increase the profits of the project. But then there's a new one, and that's Optoppen in occupied state. And that's that you do the rooftop extension while the homeowners just keep on living there. So we have to build efficient, modular, without too much noise. And it's also the only way, because how do you get a whole homeowner association to live somewhere else for 3 months? It costs a huge amount of money, and nobody will cooperate. So this is the type of Optoppen we focus on. And there's a specific type of buildings in Europe, actually. And we focus currently more on the Netherlands. Those are the post-war building blocks. This is actually a period after World War II. And we started to build for the first time in a systematic way with prefab elements, where the government had like a big central role in organizing this. And we built like a few 100,000 homes in just a decade. And that's something we have to repeat, actually. So keep this in mind. In the Netherlands, we have a challenge to build almost 1 million homes before 2030 to solve the current crisis. If we look at the potential of Optoppen in the Netherlands, and that's mostly focused on these post-war building blocks where we can build it efficient, we can solve 10% of this huge amount, which is a quite decent amount, especially if you think of it, that all these post-war building flats are situated normally around the city center, so the big wanted areas. It's not like new field developments. We don't have to buy out farmers. So it's a really interesting way to build the new homes. And this times 4, because we do the renovation of the buildings below. So actually, we have a big opportunity there. But these are just abstract numbers. If we look at Amsterdam, for example, we are doing a lot of projects there at this moment. So this is the map of Amsterdam. Maybe some of you will recognize it. It's like with the channels you see in the old city center. And then we indicated where are these post-war building blocks. And you see it here again. It's around the old city center. For your perspective, the distance from one white block to like the city center is almost, well, we bike a lot, so it's 10 minutes with the bike. So there will be 10 minutes with the car as well, actually. So I like to call this fragmented urban redevelopment plan. So you see it as one project, but as a really urban redevelopment and building on top of it. In Amsterdam, we can create, only on those post-war building blocks, around 8,400 new homes. And at the same time, we can finance the renovation of 33,000 homes. So that's a huge opportunity there. If we zoom into one field, we see here the central business district of Amsterdam, and you see the typical orientation of the Van Eesteren post-war building blocks. And there we have a lot of projects. This is one neighborhood there from another perspective, from the top view. So you see the central business district, the CBD. So we can create here 1,800 homes. But looking more close, one strip of this is around 300-400 homes. So almost 300 homes we can create here and doing the renovation. If you compare this with one very notorious and big project in Amsterdam, there's a huge building. There was a lot of things to do about it, to say about it, and it took more than 10 years of planning. So only in Amsterdam we can build 22 of these towers. And that's huge for Amsterdam. In the Netherlands, we can build 300 if we fulfill this potential. And we are currently doing research with parties in London, in Spain, what the potential would be in Europe if we fulfill this. So in that way, by addressing this, or by doing this Optoppen approach, we are not only addressing the housing demand and the housing crisis, but also the sustainable transformation. We make it possible to do to fix the lack of maintenance, and at the same time we do something for the climate. And to dive a bit deeper into that, because we have to build on top of buildings, you have to build with lightweight materials. And wood is actually a very light material compared to concrete and steel. And at the same time, wood captures the CO2. So if we build on top of these buildings, we don't need a new foundation, so we don't need a lot of concrete. We build from wood, and we're actually saving CO2 in the built environment instead of spreading it. So what do we need to do to make this big in Europe? I want to expand, but what you see nowadays, we see some Optoppen projects, but each project is often still a pilot with very high development costs. So the business case is quite difficult. And we need very specialized knowledge. And as we all know here, I think if you work in the industry, there are so many parties involved. So it's a very complex structure of parties. And of course, the fragmented ownership, where we talked about earlier, and the voting rights. So the participation is a very important thing we need to solve in this. To illustrate this one project we are currently undertaking. So these are 6 flats, also in Amsterdam. And if you start looking at the ownership of these flats, so 2 of them are owned by a social housing corporation, 100%. So that's easy. Then you only have to talk with one person and we can go. One of them is owned by an investor. Now, also doable. You go to the investor, you show the business case. They say, okay, let's do the renovation, let's do the Optoppen. And then on the far left side, you see the owner resident. So that's in the housing association. But we have another flat where you have all these parties together. So it's a very complex housing association. You have a social housing, you have an investor, and you have homeowners who own their apartment as well. So how do you get them all in line to do the Optoppen at the same time? And that's where we built a platform. So we built, because we cannot do that all by ourselves. So we made a platform with actually all different kind of parties in the industry to start working with our same principles. Or we created like flow charts, we organized processes, and everybody in this system will work according to our processes. And therefore we have a national reach, because we can work in the whole of the Netherlands currently only, but we have local knowledge. So in every region we have different parties who work with our system, but they know the municipality, for example, in that specific region. And you see our competitors, who could be competitors of us, see the benefit of our platform and say, hey, can we join your platform? And we just solve this part. Okay, let's do it. Let's work together. And we can speak with the municipalities beforehand, even before we have spoken to the owners that we want to do an optopping. We can speak with the municipality and point out certain areas and figure out what needs to be done for the permits. And therefore we are an end-to-end solution. So we bring the knowledge, we create processes and systems, not necessarily products. And we can oversee the construction process. And that's actually, in my opinion, the power of a platform. That you integrate and unify actually all the problems in one system, one platform, where you capture all the knowledge, and there you solve with the whole sector, and everyone in that sector, you solve it. And if you see something new, you can bring together all the money, and you can start doing the research. And there's a big incentive to share the knowledge, because everybody benefits in the end. So if we fix this, we can start working on some projects, and we actually start doing some projects. So this is a project of an investor actually, where we build one layer on top. So it's just a small addition to the environment, but it's a self-sustained financial model within a project. We can do something with the roof. An housing association can decide for themselves what type of project will it be. How do we want to use the roof? That's something the housing association, so the homeowners, can decide. But we calculate for them what brings more money, what brings more joy, how would a communal roof look like, or shall we do rooftop terraces only for the top layer? But then everybody gets 5,000 or 10,000 euros extra for their renovation. So this is a project I showed before. And to briefly show you the service charges. So if you recalculate that money we brought to the VVE, the service charges for the renovation would be 380 euros, which is quite a lot of money. And we brought it back after the renovation, so that's including the investment cost and everything for the renovation, to 180 euros for each homeowner. So that's a huge incentive, and that really helps also other homeowner association to start a project like this. And actually all the flats here in the neighborhood have approached us. Hey, this sounds interesting. So that's really cool to see. So if we start making a platform like this, we can think of standardized products. We see now the market starting to create different kind of modular concepts to put on top of it, using our processes. So they first come to us, and then they can place their products on top. So, and in that way, we can do not a redevelopment, but maybe an extra redevelopment in the city. So thank you.